Hi, Joe Stevens here, and I would like to share one of my magical memories from the past, especially about our dear friend Tom Mullica, who has recently passed away. Tom Mullica was a dear friend to Martha, myself, and our family. He was Martha's favorite magician. He always made her laugh, plus he was one of the first performers to ever let us videotape for the Greater Magic Video Library. He was the owner of the Tomfoolery Bar in Atlanta, Georgia. He was a pro's pro, and he dedicated his life to entertaining people. In fact, he decided early on he wanted to be a clown. He loved to make people laugh. So he got into clowning, then he worked at Abbott's Magic in Colon, Michigan. And then he got into, of course, he got into magic then. He was a natural performer, and he worked all over the world. I wrote down some highlights about Tom's act and his personality. He was quick with outs. If he made a mistake or someone interrupted him or something didn't go right in the effect, he had the out for it, and his outs were always entertaining. His act was very unusual. It was one of a kind. Nobody's ever duplicated the act that he did. He just will never be replaced. He was a very humble person. As great as he was still very humble. He dedicated his life to entertainment. He was a big fan of Red Skeleton, who worked in Branson, Missouri, Tom did, for years with the Red Skeleton Show. And his impersonations of Red was the best I've ever seen. I asked Tom years ago when he closed the bar. He had the bar in Atlanta called the Tomfoolery. It was one of the first magic bars that was successful years ago. And everybody who went to Atlanta wanted to see him in his bar because he was a bartender and he did magic, bar magic. It was a continued success. But he closed it, and I asked Tom, why did you close the Tomfoolery? This was years later after he closed it. He says, you can't run a business and perform and work every night. He just got burned out. That was his words to me. So the final story I want to tell about Tom Mullica, there's many of them, but the one that stands out with me, and Martha has one too. He went to FISM in Holland, when FISM was every 3 years, as you know, in the Europe. And he wanted to compete in the comedy magic contest. They had contests in stage, close-up, comedy, illusions, creativity, mentalism. He wanted to perform in the comedy sequence of that contest. He did his Tomfoolery act, which you know was famous with the cigarettes. Martha and I were in the audience at Holland the last day they announced all the winners. And we all thought it's a shoo-in. Tom is going to win FISM. Nobody could make you laugh like he did with that act. What was that, about 30 years ago? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when they announced it, the first one, it was not Tom Mullica. The second selection was not Tom Mullica. The third selection was Tom Mullica. And Tom, we were all so disappointed, all the Americans were, that he gave this trophy to Martha and I. He says, you take it, you keep it, I don't want it. And so we've had this trophy, and we always think of Tom when we get it. Now, why did he lose? Why did he lose? He lost because he fooled the judges. When he threw the cigarettes in his mouth, the lit cigarettes in his mouth, and then he went in to wipe his mouth with tissue and all of that, he ditched the cigarettes, but the judges didn't realize it. They thought he swallowed the cigarettes. So I found out from one of the judges later, why didn't he win? He said, they didn't want to give it to somebody who eats cigarettes. He swallowed them. He fooled them. And that's why he got third place. So Tom, and still in our books, you're first place. And now Martha would like to add something that's very unique about Tom Mullica.
You know, Joe, in doing all the tapes that we did, we could probably write a book on it. But Tom was the funniest. He's such a genius. He came in the night before, he was all prepped, all excited, and we had dinner, and we talked about the show. We go to the studio, and everything happened. I mean, the lights came down, the balloon busted. We were there until noon, and at noon, they had to close the studio because they had the news coming on. So we all broke for lunch, and we came back after lunch, and we decided, no matter what, we were going to go straight through that video. If the lights blew up, we were going to go straight through that video. So the first thing he did was have me pick a card. So I pick a card, and my friend picks a card, and he turns around to me and says, now, what was your card? And I totally drew a blank. I couldn't remember my card. Now I've been in magic all these years, I've never forgot a card. And he said, do you know how much better this trick would be if you could remember that card? Well, the cool thing about it was he literally used me during the whole thing. How hard do you think it is to work with Quaaludes? It's very hard. And this is what you have to do. And we had a ball. It was the funniest tape ever. And Tom said afterwards that he and I made that tape because it taught magicians how to work with Quaaludes. So I love you, Tom. I miss you, and I'll keep your trophy.
That's right,
Thanks.
Tom. Thank you very much for a great life, a magic life. You were a consummate professional, and we'll always remember you, and so will Magic World.
Yes.